Here we are in Keflavik, Iceland, waiting for our flight to Stockholm. Time to ponder, why is this trip titled Beyond the Age of Empire? We're visiting 10 cities, from Stockholm to Abu Dhabi and Minsk to Corsica, with Turkmenistan and the Balkans thrown in. So what do all these places have in common? Most are communist before 1991, but what about the outliers? What will they contribute to this story? One thing we learned in school was that the history of Europe was about the ebb and flow of empires, from Julius Caesar to Charlemagne, Genghis Khan, Napoleon, Hitler, and Stalin. As we approach Stockholm, it seems that the riddle to consider is, what is beyond the age of empire? How do people we're going to visit see their place in the world, and why did they think that? To get an answer, we need to explore how empires have shaped their cultures, cuisine, language, religion, and ethnicity. A tall order for so brief a visit. We're on the ground in Stockholm, Sweden, so our exploration starts now. We check into the Grand Hotel, built in 1874. Our room has a great view of Old Town and the Royal Palace. After all that flying, we need to stretch our legs. We were told that Nobel Grillen has the best French fries in the world, so we had to find out. Very tasty. We stopped by the palace, but nobody was home. It's time for our sunset cocktail cruise. We're greeted by musicians playing traditional instruments, including a nickel harpa. We cruise past Old Town. The buildings are from the 16th and 17th centuries. Stockholm is built on 14 islands, so there's plenty of waterways and bridges. The clouds and the water make for a beautiful sunset. The lights are on as we cruise back to our hotel. We explore the narrow streets of Old Town. There's our restaurant, Fem Small Hus, 5 small houses. Swedish cuisine at its best. From the sea, herring 4 ways. From farm and forest, reindeer with lingonberry. And veal with morel mushrooms. Back to the hotel. Hope the jet lag won't be too bad. After breakfast, we're on a walking tour of the city. There's the Parliament building, built between 1897 and 1905. And this is Sager Palace, the Prime Minister's residence. The Iron Spire is the Riddarholmen Church, where the kings and queens of Sweden are buried. Not all the buildings are old. Here's the new conference center. And we're at our objective, Stockholm City Hall. We enter the courtyard and look up at the tower with 3 crowns, an old national symbol of Sweden. City Hall was built between 1911 and 1923 in a national romantic style. We enter the Blue Room. Looking around, you know that this is not just any town hall. This huge room was designed with a specific purpose in mind. This is where the Nobel Prizes for chemistry, physics, medicine, literature, and economics are awarded at a grand banquet hosted by the King and Queen. Then the new Nobel laureates adjourn to the Golden Hall for a celebration. Over 18 million mosaic tiles give the room its name. The side walls are dedicated to notable people and events in Swedish history. The Nobel festivities are carried live on Swedish TV, and the ratings are better than the World Cup. Toward the front are male and female figures holding children and symbols of peace and knowledge, representing the future. At the front of the hall is the figure of Malodrottning, the Lady of the Lake, the symbol of Stockholm. She is welcoming the people of the East and of the West to her city. So Swedes take very seriously their charge from Alfred Nobel to celebrate those who confer the greatest benefit on mankind. Now we'll switch to bikes for a trip back in time. We stop on the bridge for a panoramic view across Lake Balaron. Next stop is Wrangel Palace. Since 1756, it's housed a court of appeals. Meet Birger Jarl, the traditional founder of Stockholm, around 1250. We take a break at Riddarholmen Church, one of the oldest buildings in Stockholm, parts of which date back to the late 13th century. It's good to know that here bicyclists have the right-of-way even over pedestrians. Here's our hotel. I'm starting to get the lay of the land in spite of all the winding streets and bridges. This is Strandvägen, Shore Street. It was completed for the Stockholm World's Fair of 1897. Shore Street has been one of the most prestigious addresses in Stockholm ever since. Then over the Djurgården Bridge, also built for the 1897 World's Fair, to the Vasa Museum. The Vasa is a ship of war that first sailed August 10, 1628. Unfortunately, she floundered in a light breeze and sank in Stockholm Harbor on that maiden voyage. She was designed for shock and awe, with 2 gun decks and 64 cannon. The Vasa was richly decorated with sculpture intended to glorify the authority, wisdom, and martial prowess of the monarch. So why would Sweden need such a ship? Did you learn about the Swedish Empire in school? Me either. Here's Sweden today. Here's Sweden in 1658. It's the largest country in Europe with the largest standing army. In 1628, Sweden was wrapping up a 28-year war with the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. This was the war Vasa was built for. In 1630, Sweden enters the 30 Years' War on the side of the Protestants against the Catholics. The 30-Year War ends in 1648, and Sweden gains territories from Norway, Denmark, and is given control over the mouths of the Elbe, and Weser, and the Oder rivers in Germany, and it becomes a great power. In the Second Northern War of 1655-1660, the Swedish Empire reaches the extent of its territory with concessions from the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, Denmark, Norway, and Russia. Just as the Vasa design was flawed, so was the Swedish Empire. The Vasa didn't have enough ballast to support the tall superstructure, and the core of the Swedish Empire was resource poor and sparsely populated. The conquered lands could not pay enough taxes to garrison the mercenary army needed to collect them. The Swedish Empire was going bankrupt. The Great Northern War, 1700 to 1721, brings the Great Power era to an end. All of the countries that had lost territory to Sweden over the past 150 years form an alliance against a weakened Sweden. Sweden fights its last war in 1809, and it loses Finland to Russia. Ever since, it's taken a position of neutrality. We leave the Vasa Museum and are back to the present. We're taking a ferry back to Old Town, passing over the place where the Vasa sank. Some of these townhouses could date back to the 1600s. People watched the Vasa sink from these windows. We walk back to the hotel through the narrow, winding streets. At the hotel, we're joined by more of the group. The next stop is Östermalm, established in 1888. This place makes Whole Foods look like a convenience store. Here you can get the freshest and the best of everything. From beautiful vegetables to the freshest fish and well-aged beef. and prepared foods of all kinds. Beautiful fruit. And baked goods right at the door that we couldn't pass up. That was fun. Now it's back to the hotel. The group's all together for the big welcome dinner. We wake to a beautiful, clear morning. We have some time to kill. There's a security problem at the airport, so we take a walk and explore more of Stockholm. It's also a chance to ask our guide more questions. What's the biggest problem facing Sweden today? Her answer really surprised us. Immigration. Many more people are arriving in Sweden than are leaving. In fact, about 20% of the population are foreign-born or born in Sweden with two foreign-born parents. So where are these people coming from? They are asylum seekers from some of the most war-torn parts of the world: Somalia, the Balkans, Afghanistan, and now Syria. The problem is not that they are coming to Sweden, it's how to assimilate them into Swedish society. The problem at the airport is resolved, and we board the buses and take a last tour through the city. Marshal Jean Benido points us to the airport, and the crew welcomes us on board.